Hello, hello, hello. This is
Oh,
Chris and Louise. This is pretty much in many ways, my debut of Collage of Health, my platform where I explore the mental, the physical, and the spiritual to help with the highest level of empowerment, sovereignty, authenticity, and divine healing for the individual. So I am excited to be talking with Louise, who we're in the same community together through Julia Balaz's Galactic Soul Reading Practitioner Program, where
mhm.
both have graduated, so to speak, from the program, but we still stay very connected with this divine community of people. And the concept of walk ins has recently come into my mind's eye. And it's interesting when certain topics come up, you see it in many different places. One of which was last night, I was reading David Kelly's book, Connecting with Arcturians,
Mhm.
and he speaks of walk-ins and how they're spiritual visitors where our body is almost like a car and it can be inhabited by the host, which is the driver of the car, but other helpers can come in to kind of give the host assistance, so to speak.
Mhm.
So there's many different types of walk-ins. They kind of highlighted more of the gradual version where divine beings can come in and out of a body, but there are other experiences. So I'd love to. Louise had mentioned on I think our Facebook group that she has experience with being a walk-in. So I've invited her on this very, very new platform to
Yeah.
speak of her experience and honor. And her dog wants to speak of her experience.
Mm.
Animals are very in tune with us. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
welcome his or her voice also.
Thank you. Thank you. I think from what you've just described, that to me is more like trans mediumship in a way, where another sort of energy or vibration comes in and takes over and uses that body as a chat. They're a channel effectively. Um, I don't know if that resonates, but certainly I've had a lot of experience with people who can do trans mediumship, and where the soul sort of steps in, the soul steps out, but it's not a permanent sort of situation. But from my understanding of walk-ins is where it's where this the soul that has incarnated in the body originally, for whatever reason, decides to leave, um, and instead of the body dying and the exit point being sort of the end of that physical incarnation for that human body, another more high vibrational soul can step in and take over. So the original soul leaves and a new soul steps in, so it's the same body. So from the outside, it looks the same, but obviously the consciousness is, very different, I would say. And that is kind of my understanding. Now, again, everyone's got different, filters and different knowledge, but I would say that that is usually a pre-agreed sort of soul contract. It works for the higher vibrational soul because they may have a mission that they need to fulfill, and they don't actually need or want to kind of experience the whole being in a physical body, being birthed, going through childbirth and being a baby and a toddler in the earlier years. They're just here to carry out a mission. So they don't need to do the earlier part, and they step in. But I also feel that at times there may be, so that if that's a pre-agreed, so when the original soul comes in, they know that at some point they're going to go, and and that transfer will take place. But I also feel especially now, that there may be other walk-ins that are almost like on an emergency mission, if that makes sense. Sort of, they've got to come in and they've got to do something, and they can only do it by being incarnated. So, you know, in which case, I don't know if someone's looking to exit for whatever reason, you know, and then, you know, there can be a transfer there. So that's my kind of take on it. And my understanding is that it can be quite a simple transfer of souls, where it's not very obvious that you know, there's a new sort of core essence, or it can be quite dramatic. And you know, where the new version of the same person, you know, obviously they've got the cellular memory within the physical body, but they've got a very different level of consciousness, and they've got a mission, so they can, the personality can change quite dramatically, and you know, and their friends and family will be really aware that something is different, but obviously, you know, not always understand what's happened. So my personal experience is slightly different. I had an Akashic reading done when I was probably about 8-9 years ago, and at the time I would say I was very sort of spiritually aware. I'd sort of learned all about reincarnation, and you know, the soul being in the body, and you know, being, you could leave and then come back, and that was completely sort of on board with all that. That felt like absolute truth to me. I'd never considered that we could have lifetimes on places other than Earth at that point. I'd never heard the term starseed, and I had my Akashic reading done expecting to be told, you know, why I had certain issues around money, and you know, and sort of other more sort of human things. But she said first of all, she said that the soul that was in my body currently wasn't the soul that had been arrived when I was born, and that it had taken about 3 years for the process, for the transfer, it sounds a bit formal, but the transfer to take place. She also said that I was a starseed soul, and that I was also a shapeshifter and a time traveler. So I'm like, it was a bit of a, well, I wasn't expecting any of that. So that was quite a shock, and some of that I still don't really understand. But the whole first of all, the starseed was really interesting because a lot of things started to fall into place from that time. I started to sort of research it and find out what that meant, and you know, having felt very different from the beginning, and you know, not really fitting in, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's why. And that's taken me on a completely different sort of direction in my life. So
Do you want
that
to
was
just
any point.
quickly just highlight what an Akashic record reading is and what a star seed is, just in case someone's watching this
Yeah,
and they're like,
sure.
what's an Akashic record reading?
Yeah, sure. So again, my understanding is that as souls, we have basically all of our lifetimes experiences are recorded somewhere, and many people call that the Akashic records. Now, whether some people think it's actually a physical or a non-physical place that you go to, that can be accessed through meditation, or whether it's basically, it's an energetic imprint, I believe, of everything that we've done, all the people we've had contacts with, all the lifetimes that we've had, and all our experiences that our soul has had. So a person who knows how to access the records is known as an Akashic reader, and they can access information about your soul. And again, it would, I wouldn't expect someone to be able to go in and just get the entire picture, but it's usually what your soul wants to sort of reveal to you at that point of time that's going to sort of be for your highest good. So I was, yeah, basically this lady went in and sort of read basically some of my soul history, or what was ready to step forward at that time. So I think, you know, an Akashic reader can look at different past lifetimes you've had, and you know, sort of, it may bring up traumas that are ready to be healed, that sort of thing. And it's always, I'd say, with the information that you get, and when I do my readings, I always sort of try and flag this. We're not supposed to know everything. So it's like, sort of, you know, drip feeding little nuggets of information at the right time to sort of help us move forward. So and is that okay? Is that good?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like a star seed. I mean, what differentiates a star seed from a non-star seed?
So I would say star seeds for me are souls who are quite they're not used to coming to Earth. They may have had incarnations here before, but they've not. Some souls have been, here thousands of times, so they're completely ingrained in sort of the earthly in reincarnation cycle. But starseeds are souls who are more comfortable and more used to being on other sort of planets or fixed stars, so outside of our earthly planet. And there are I believe many star seeds incarnated at this current time to help with the ascension and the shift that's happening in our moving from one dimension to the next. So
Great.
yeah, so we've come en masse to help, sort of just to raise the vibration and help sort of people wake up to understand who they truly are, I guess.
So, did you have an inkling that you could have been like not here for the first 3 years and that maybe it sounds like what you're saying is you came into a body where someone hosted it for you through for the first 3 years so that you could come in a specific point in time. And was there a reason why you came in at that time?
Okay, well, I don't think it was planned. So I think what happened, and I've had this sort of, when I talk about it, I usually get, kind of confirmation of truth. I think when, because I hadn't been here many times, I think at the point of birth, there was a problem. My soul wasn't compatible with the body, because I did have a traumatic birth. I got stuck. So I had to be sort of rotated and, forceps out. And my understanding is that for whatever reason, when my soul tried to join the body properly, it didn't really work. So, and I think in a lot of cases when that happens, because I can't believe that's, that's unique to me, I would imagine that, the baby may not actually survive. But I think in my case, again, I've been told that wasn't an option because it was quite a significant lifetime it had to go ahead. So it sounds a bit crazy talking about it, but my understanding is that another soul was literally put in as a last minute sort of, in you go to keep that body alive. And then, I was 34 months old, I now know, when I came in. And it's interesting because I have never I don't talk to my family about any sort of this sort of stuff because they're just not so, which is why I know I'm very different in my views and my beliefs and my understanding. But when I look at photographs of myself as a really small baby and even as a very young toddler, it doesn't look like me. It's like there's something, it's just, and then from 3 years old onwards, it's like there's a really quite strong contrast. It's interesting, and I've shown that to my friend that knows me very well, and she agrees. So it was.
I get a sense that you could have. Did you know that soul who kind of stepped in for you in the early years? Did you have
I think that soul, again, when I was first told about the walk-in, I was, because I didn't, at that point, I wasn't sort of given what I've just explained to you. I was basically told, there's another soul. They were in your body for the first 3 years, and then you stepped in. I wasn't given the kind of background and the understanding. And the Akashic reading lady told me at that point, she said the other soul is still hanging around and trying to get back in. And that totally freaked me out because I'd always felt quite just it's hard to, when you just got feelings, it's hard to put into words, but I'd always felt like quite threatened all through my life, and suddenly to be told that there was a soul that was trying to get back in. So I don't think I know them. I've done a lot of healing work with them, in gratitude to that soul, because obviously they did me a huge service by taking on that role. And I believe that they have now left, but I think they were around for a long time. So, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. Was there a pivotal thing that happened around, was it 34 months in your life, that it was important that you come into this body? Or was it just that was a time when you were going to go into like the next iteration of babyhood to more like,
Yeah. I don't think it was a specific timing. Maybe it was just that was the first opportunity that, the energy was compatible and we could make the swap. So I don't think it was yeah, I couldn't answer that, but I know from um I'm trying to think. I basically, the light work started almost immediately because I was being taken as a young child to places where I now know that there's some very dark energy and some very, bad stuff going on, and historically as well. So I've always found throughout my life that I end up in places that, there's very sort of toxic, dense, icky energy. And again, I've only known more recently that I was clearing that energy, but I think I've been doing that from
early
pretty much when I arrived. So
time?
yeah.
Um, so that sounds interesting and intriguing. Do you want to try to give the listener, or at least give me, a little bit more information on what that means?
Yeah, sure. So again, I found out probably, so I'll be 50 next year, and I probably found out when I was, again, everything happened in my early 40s, I guess. I'd always been very spiritual and very interested in, I tried lots of different healing modalities. So I'd kind of gone around and tried lots of different things. But I think I found out in my early 40s that I was what is described as an empath. So an empath is somebody that is incredibly sensitive and can basically pick up on the energies and emotions of buildings, environments, and people around them. So which again, unless you can do it, it's quite hard to explain. But you can suddenly feel really angry and think, well, why do I feel so angry? But actually now I know I can ask, is this mine? Is this my emotion? And I usually get a yes or a no, and generally it's a no. So if it's a no, I can just say, right, okay, let it go. But in terms of clearing energy, and again, when I've been looking at when I've been doing readings for clients, the galactic and soul purpose readings, so many people that come to me are doing this as well. So it's basically where we're just walking around, like it's almost like a hoover, sort of sucking up all the dense energy and the negative toxic energy and transmuting it. And it's not, I don't always know I'm doing it. I can feel it now. I'm more aware of it, but certainly when I was younger, I didn't. And then I'd get quite poorly and quite, and feel ill and tired and exhausted and depressed and have no understanding why. But now it's nice to know that that's what I'm doing. And I'm happy to do it because, it's part of the service that I've come here to help with. But yeah, so, and I can, if I've got somebody that I'm working with or connected to, I can sort of tune in. I can tell whether they've got stuff that needs to be cleared. And generally it's never something to worry about, but when you're carrying other people's, stuff and rubbish, it can sort of make you feel quite tired and heavy and drained. And, it's really, we don't really want anybody else's stuff. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
it sounds like through your life, you've um, intermingled with some heavy energy to help move it out,
Yeah.
forward, move it out. And that once you learned that it wasn't yours to own, it allowed you to clear it more quickly.
Yeah. I think I was probably always clearing it, but I wasn't always practicing a really good sort of responsible, we call it energy hygiene, I guess, where, you know, making sure that you're grounded, making sure that you're protected, and that, you're doing work consciously. So I guess, being quite wide open and walking around like a sponge, absorbing all this rubbish, and then not actually being able to consciously let it go. So
Okay.
um
I love that
yeah.
word, energy hygiene. So
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
name four things that you would recommend to other empaths to help clear things quickly and cleanly?
Um, yeah, I think it's, for me, it's all about intention and using visualization.
Okay.
So generally, I think being grounded, so having a really strong connection to earth is really important, and that's something that anybody who's sensitive and open should be doing on a very regular basis. And you can do that by just visualizing, your feet flat on the ground and your roots coming down out of your feet down into the center of Mother Earth, and holding on. But obviously there's other ways of doing it. Just walking barefoot outside in the grass or earthing is also a really easy and quick way of doing it. And you can also carry certain grounding crystals with you and essential oil. So there's lots of different sort of tools that you can use. In terms of clearing energy, I think the waterfall visualization technique's really good, where you sort of visualize, standing on a waterfall, under a waterfall, and just letting all that water come all over you, all through your body and your aura, and just visualizing all that dirty, icky stuff just literally being washed away. And again, just try and visualize it being sucked down a plug hole down into Mother Earth, because Mother Earth can always transmute it. She knows what she's doing. So once it's down there, you don't need to worry about it anymore. I'm just trying to think. Sometimes if I feel I need, if it's something quite big, I often ask, my guides and archangels to come in and help, because they're already always willing to assist, and they just come in and, and do the job for me if I need that. But yeah, it is very much about intention. So
Thank you. Thank you. So you're
yeah.
really working with elements, grounding, and also using the visual of water. And I imagine you could even jump in the shower too. And simply,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally cleaning off will douse the.
Yeah. And I always use if I'm working with, well, I can check myself. Generally, I can, just ask myself, do I need to be cleared? I don't always notice it. And then, a day or two later, I'll be feeling really rubbish. I'm thinking, oh, and then I'm like, oh, damn, I've got something, and it needs to be cleared. So I'm getting better at checking more quickly. But
Right.
sometimes, these things creep in and you're like, yeah, and they don't always make you feel that good. But yeah.
I love
It's
that. I love
like
that.
it's
Yeah, I'm definitely an empath myself, and I don't ask often enough, is this mine that I'm holding or is it someone else's? And, is it cleared once,
yeah,
a lot of times you can feel if it's cleared, if you're holding
yeah,
kind of energy. Um, yeah,
yeah,
I pick up on grief a lot with people. I mean, that's
yeah,
something I pick up on. And sometimes I'll joke with someone I'm working with, especially if I know the person, like, this is yours. I'd like you to take
yeah,
this to yourself, just being really
yeah,
clear with energy.
yeah,
So, I had a thought about walk-ins, and I don't know if you're familiar with other walk-ins, but one of my thoughts was that walk-ins might sometimes come in to hold the grid of a unit of family or even in the community when someone a soul wants to depart, and that person is really pivotal, which every soul is pivotal, but maybe there's an unexpected desire to leave that wasn't necessarily scripted, and one
mm-hmm.
might come in to help hold the grid of the family. What are your
Mm.
thoughts about that?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's so many souls out there wanting to be of service,
Mhm.
and I think anything is possible. I mean, yeah, I mean, to think that, we have the ability to swap souls, already to some people is going to be a bit like, whoa, it's a bit sort of out there. So, but if you think that's possible, then,
Anything is
anything is possible. But I would imagine in that situation, it would be a soul that had a very strong link to that family, or to, to that sort of lineage. Well, that would be my sort of immediate thought.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that viscerally um, resonates with me for
Yeah,
sure.
as an act of sort of love and service. Um,
So when you found out that the concept of walk-in was a possible reality for you, were you like, this is absolutely true, or is there a part of you that questions it and says, is this real? Does this, you know, or does it viscerally resonate with you that you?
Yeah, it did resonate, but I think almost everything that I've come across, I never question it. And although lots of people around me do, but I just think no, it just made sense to me a lot, especially, then, looking at the photographs and thinking, yeah, whoever is in that little baby's body is not, who's in my body now. And I was really in tune and really sensitive.
Um, have you talked to your mom or your family about this? Have you ever asked about this, or did I change when I was 3 years old? Or if
No.
if this goes on YouTube, would you want them to see it, or would you not want your family to see it? Like, do you think it would be
um
for them?
I think, well, my mum is no longer with us, so that wouldn't be an option. And yeah, I I guess I'm not sure that they would get it, because, even just doing astrology, my dad thinks, it's all hocus pocus and right, well, it clearly isn't to me. But yeah, so I think, yeah, we just have a very different,
Well,
belief system. But yeah, I just think, well, I've got to come out and, and do what is right for me. So
what would you tell other walk-ins? Like if someone
mm,
was pretty clear that this had been their journey, what advice would you give them, or tidbits, or if someone questioned it, how could they know if it was true other than having an Akashic record reading?
um I well, again, my guess would be that if you are a walk-in, then your soul and your awareness and your level of consciousness is going to be a lot higher, which should hopefully give you access to more, just a kind of greater understanding of what's going on. And if that's not the case immediately, then I would imagine that your soul would kind of arrange for you to go and meet the right people. Because again, for me, it felt very divinely timed. And everything throughout my journey has been very divinely timed, and I kind of see now how everything has had to happen in certain order. But yeah, I always think as well, just sending out the intention or the request for help and for clarity always seems to help as well. If you want to know, and you've got a really burning desire, and you sort of put that message out there, then the universe is going to respond and send people along to help.
Yeah. What
So
what made you come into your body and that space and time, into that family and lineage? Do you feel like you had a connection with your ancestral lineage, and or was it more of a community, like times where you were in a certain place to help the people in your area in the UK? You live in the
yeah, yeah. I think I probably have transmuted a lot of sort of ancestral and family karma, because yeah, without going into detail, that there has been sort of trauma there. And I think that's one of my roles, was to come in and help clear that, again, without anybody really knowing that that's what was going on. But and I kind of, I don't know, I've always felt like I had quite an unremarkable life. So, I'm not like out there, I don't know, I am on YouTube now, obviously, but it's just sort of, a mum, and I'm working in a school, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But actually, when I sort of think about it, I have done so many different jobs, and I've lived in so many different places, and I've done a lot of traveling, and I've met loads of different people. And I think all the time it's been literally just, going around clearing energy, or doing something, vibrationally, that I'm not always aware of. But like I say, there's always been, I end up working with someone for a brief time, and I just think, how on earth did this happen? What? And it just really weird, well, not weird, but stuff that I never expected to do. Suddenly I'm like, oh, why don't I go and do this job for a few months or a couple of years? And I'm like, how did that happen? But then, and that comes to an end, and then I'm on to somewhere else. I don't even question it now. I just think, oh, I'm working back in a school. I'm obviously needed, for some reason. So
So you
that's
work,
what I'm doing.
are you a teacher? What do you
I'm a teaching assistant, so I'm
you
yeah,
kids?
yeah.
And what grade, what age do
Um I so the school is, they take kids from the age of 3 to 9 years old, but my main class is they're 6 and 7, so they're turning 7 this academic year. So
okay.
yeah,
You, are you able to spot empaths in the classroom, and do you have a special, I don't know, affiliation, I guess, affinity towards those
yeah.
kids who are sensitive souls?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually I've done some cover in the nursery class.
Mm.
So they are really small, they're 3 years old.
Wow.
And, just talking about the higher frequency souls coming in now, just like, wow. Some of them don't even look, based on our galactic astrology. You just think, you're not human. It's just they look different. There's one that is completely mute, clearly decided there's no need for language because he's reading everybody energetically. And I just think, wow. So that's amazing. But yeah, I'm very drawn to the quieter ones. And I kind of was looking, they have all the birthdays listed on the wall, so I was looking to see what sun sign they've got. And I'm just like, again, it's uncanny. There's 2 Aries boys in that class, and they'd have to be the first in the line, and they have to be the best, and they're like, yeah, they're always, just striving forward. And then the little boy who's Cancer, he just, you could just tell he's just like taking it all in, and it's just so aware. So that's really cool, actually, because I wouldn't have known about that a few years ago. But
That's
yeah,
so. So it sounds like in knowing, someone's, at least their sun sign, you have more compassion for the way they present themselves in the
yeah,
world. It's just the way their soul's signature, so to
yeah.
speak. Um, even if you're just looking at the sun sign.
Yeah, because unfortunately, without their exact time of birth, I wouldn't know. But interestingly, I watched something. We're kind of going on to astrology now a bit, but I watched a lady who works with teachers and astrology, and she was saying that in a year, an academic year, the majority of the children will have the same Jupiter sign, and Jupiter influences how we learn. So I was like, oh, that's interesting as well. So they're all Scorpios in that class. So
Is that their Jupiter? Is
yeah, all of them. Yeah, yeah.
wow,
So
wow.
they clearly quite like to dig deep, and in all the mysteries, and yeah. So that's
Budding researchers.
mm, yeah.
Um, that's interesting.
Mm,
So with the so with this connecting with Arcturians, when he talks about walk-ins, he says that sometimes souls are stuck and
yeah.
they need a higher being to come in and to help them find their purpose when
Mhm.
they've kind of lost their way on their soul purpose. And one of the interesting things that he said was that the person can actually become more of who they are rather
Mhm.
than less. So I think what this conversation for me is helping me realize that there's a lot of different types of walk-ins,
Yeah.
and that we see this body and the person within the body from a very third dimensional plane
Yeah.
ordinarily, that it's me and it's just me, whereas there could be other influencers or
Mm.
literally other, souls that might come in and out or share a body. I was actually talking to my mom before the call, and she didn't really understand, and then she kind of got it, and she said, "Well, it is like a car. The body is like the car,
Yeah.
and like different people can be in the car and get in and out of the car." And it sounds like the woman who, or I'm assuming, well, obviously it was a woman, the girl or female who was in your body might have wanted to come back in. And do you have any idea about that? Are you curious about that, or does that kind of
Yeah.
out?
I think yeah, there was definitely a strong attachment on that soul's part. What for whatever reason didn't want to leave. Um, but and again, like I said, I felt very threatened initially, but now I've kind of changed, my view on that, and done a lot of healing and sort of forgiveness and releasing. So yeah, again, it's all perception. Um, but yeah, I think we've got no idea what is possible. Like you say, we're kind of trying to work things out from a very third dimension human, and talking about this is taking it way, way beyond. But we're just scratching the surface. So it is amazing.
Yeah, I
Amazing.
never really even, I've always been highly spiritual and, have had an affinity towards um, Christ consciousness, Mother Mary, the Ascended Masters, and come from a Buddhist
Hmm.
perspective also.
Hmm.
But I had not come from a galactic perspective until recently, where it just was almost like downloads of this is, you know, potentiality, and then seeing Julia and Pam Gregory really just kind of blew my mind open, and Tim
Yeah.
Course blew my mind open, and meeting people and talking with people, clients and you, and reading books has really just kind of opened up my world. And so this leads me to the question of parallel lives, because I
Oh
have had
yeah.
clients who've had parallel lives, and they've actually been in the way of another person, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I've had one person where I think her other in her life was actually her, which was kind of
Right. Oh
wild.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into her story for confidentiality reasons, but I can say that this partner of hers died the day that she didn't die.
Okay.
So it was just kind of an interesting thing
Yeah.
that her body, she was saved, and then the other in her life who lived across the country died. So I thought that was just, I wondered if it was a fragmentation of her or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell
Because
me what your thoughts on parallel lives and how it relates to walk-ins or doesn't.
yeah, well, again, when the lady that did my Akashic reading, she before it was a written report that she sent me, but she sort of messaged me before and just said, "Can I just ask you?" She said, "Do you ever find that you lose time in your day? Where you're doing one thing and then you look at the clock and you've lost, it's a different time than you thought it was." I was like, "Yeah, actually, that happens quite a lot." Um, Again, it wasn't something that I'd consciously thought of before, but she said, "Oh, I think you are basically jumping out your body, and you have got another um life going on at the same time," but she said it's not a physical life, and I've never really explored what that might be, but she said that's what happened, that's what's going on. Your soul is sort of dipping in and out, so to speak, so there must be um something going on. But actually, the more I look into this, I'm starting to think we as humans, we are very, very obsessed with time and linear time, and and wanting to know, well, if I first incarnated and came to Earth, in the early 1300s, then the next one would have been, and sort of trying
Hmm.
to put it in the sequence. But actually, I don't. The more I'm sort of looking at people's charts and just exploring this whole area, I think it's only on Earth that we have this linear time, and actually I think all of it could be happening at the same time right now. There might not even be time, but again, that's kind of takes you like, ooh, um it's very difficult for our brains to
wrap
kind
around.
of get around that. One thing actually I would say, because when you were talking about souls sort of stepping in and out, there's obviously and I don't really want to talk about this at length at all, but there are situations where souls get or bodies get possessed by, a darker, or a soul that isn't of the light that is trying to come in and take over. And that might be where someone's very vulnerable, or for whatever reason that happens. But I think where in the case of a walk-in, it is a contracted agreement and there is consent there for that to take place. So I think that's quite different, a very
Yes.
different scenario. So
Yeah. And David Miller highlights that
okay.
in his book too. He talks about the higher self agrees for
Yeah.
the walk-in to come in,
Yeah.
and to assist that person. Um, yeah. So I guess in conclusion, how is it to be, you know, this to live in, well, and I wanted to go back to your point
Mhm.
about like past lives and
Yeah.
life, because sometimes when people ask me about a past life, it's like, well, what's happening now in your life? Because
Yeah.
it's going to be a reflection of your past life. And the reason we're here in some ways, yes, many of us are star seeds and are here to help, increase the vibration of the world, but also to a certain extent, there is a samskaric pattern where we kind of loop,
Hmm.
everybody has their extent of their looping. Some people, of course, looping more than others. But if people really want to know about their past lives, sometimes it's just looking at fragments of their own life. Um,
Yeah.
Everything is happening in the now, and the more we're in the now, the more we can surpass the patterning that we're stuck in the past. Do you think?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at past lives, your higher self or the universe or is only ever going to show you experiences that are going to help you to kind of understand more about where you're at now. And again, when I do my readings, that's what I try to bring in. It's like, the energy that is relevant from a particular star system, that relates to a past life, either, here or anywhere, how is that affecting you, or how can that be used, and to benefit now and to help you grow. And, if you've come into work on particular wounds or, trauma that it's this lifetime, then it is going to be clear, then again, that's something that is going to help you. Because yeah, I think, it's fascinating to know where you've come from and what experiences you've had, but actually, that's another time. It's like, what about that is relevant now? I think that's what is really, because we've got to make the most of this experience because we've come here for a reason. So there's no point spending our time like looking elsewhere, and at the past and the future. You can try and focus on the now. So
Absolutely.
um, I was going to actually, just to, because you're talking about knowing about past lives, I before I knew that I was a star seed and a walk-in and what other else that I'd done, because I was really interested in past lives, fascinated, and I'd read lots of books about it, and I'd had quite a few regressions, and I'd done a course where, each week we'd go and we'd sort of do a meditation and look at past lives, and I'd had lots of readings as well, and I'd got so many different past lives that I'd seen in meditation or been told about. Oh, oh.
Very
I said that I've had all these experiences and memories, and like, that doesn't make sense if I've only been here 7 times. But then I read about imprinting. So I don't know if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon. She talks about it extensively.
I felt into that before I even learned about it. I felt
Yeah,
people, yes,
yeah. Because everyone's like, oh, well, I was Cleopatra and I was Cleopatra. I was like, how does it, you can't all have been, but actually, and I think that's something that is really relevant for me coming in. So
so in my understanding of imprinting, and this is like almost my direct understanding, is some souls need to learn about this plane of existence. So it's almost like a download, like a,
Yeah,
and I was talking to my
yeah,
mom about this today, and she's like, I don't get it. I said, well, when you go to the movies, are you in the movie? And she's like, no. And I go, are some people in the movie? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the way it is. You see the
yeah.
movie, but you're not actually in the movie.
Yeah, it is. It's, yeah, but downloading is exactly how it's almost like you plug yourself in. It's like a computer, download the files, then you've got them, available to access whenever. So
Yeah.
that experience, but that would explain why I had so many sort of regressions and experiences and memories where, there's just no way that, that doesn't line up with only being here 7 times. But it makes sense that my soul would want to absorb all that, because obviously it's not really that easy being here. So as much help as you can get, it's kind of,
Do you think
I,
in some ways you came in because you wanted to be part of the last dance on a very tangible level to assist?
I think, well, I've been told I don't really, although I, through looking at my galactic chart, I can chart where I've been, and I can, so, I've had other people look and give me sort of impressions of, so I know that I've been traveled a lot of places, but I don't actually know where I originally come from. It's not of this, it's not charted, basically. It's another universe. And I think, again, I've been told, and this resonates very strongly, is that my frequency is needed here. So that's why I've come, basically. And until sort of 2 years ago, beginning of, COVID and lockdown, I was sort of, I was happily going along, very awake, very aware, but I understand a lot more. I feel like I've had a crash course in the last 2 years about what's going on and why we're ascending, and what's been going on historically. And in light of that, I now absolutely can see very clearly why I'm here and how that fits into everyone else being here, and what we're trying to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to know, because I was like, spent so long going, I've got a purpose, I've got a mission, why am I here, why am I here? And it's like, no, nothing. It's like, okay, well, I'll go and try that job then. It's like, no, that's not it. And then, so it's really nice to kind of feel I kind of know now. I know there's work to do, we're not done yet, but
Well, and it's interesting you say that because I cannot tell you how many people that I've worked with and interacted with who are there like, what's my purpose? What's my
yeah,
purpose? And David Miller in the Connecting with Arcturians, which is basically a channeled transmission book, talks about how just being here, just holding space, the
yeah,
spiritual beingness is
yeah,
the importance, just to
yeah,
be on earth and to realize that as you go about your day, if you stay in a high vibe, it really raises the vibration
yeah.
tremendously. And I know we don't have much more time, but I did want to give you a plug for your reading, because I had a reading with you. And a good example of past lives and current lives, which is perfect to mention, is you in my reading said I was part of the earth itself. I want to say something of Gaia. You said you come from the beginnings of Gaia. I'm not sure if I got that correctly. And I mentioned to you that my granddaughter calls me Gaia.
I
So
know, that was like, wow.
exactly. It was like, what's happening now? Well, my granddaughter calls me Gaia, and that, resonates from where your existence started, right?
Yeah,
Beginnings of the earth.
yeah,
So
yeah,
very cool stuff. And I also want to highlight as we close that we can live very ordinary lives, being a teacher's assistant and having children and living probably a semi-suburban, I'm guessing, type of existence. To be a light worker, you could work in any different facet.
yeah,
A
yeah.
starseed light worker, envoy, as Elena Denon calls them, uh,
Mm,
and make a difference. You don't have to
yeah.
be a religious leader or a spiritual, guru. You can just be just an ordinary person living an extraordinary existence.
Yeah, because I think don't underestimate the ripple effect of how, if you touch one person, how they then go out to sort of, and take that out, and how very quickly it can spread. So Yeah, I think I agree. I have lots of people coming to me going, I want to know, why am I here? And it's like this whole sense of mission. And I used to use that word. I'm like, that's a really strange word to use. Why would I have a mission? That's really odd, but that's how it feels. Um, and it's really, it can be really strong and really insistent. And so I do relate when people say, what's my purpose? Why am I here? I can totally relate. But yeah, you're right. For so many of us, it is just about being here. And just being here in itself is like a massive undertaking, because I don't think, we give ourselves credit for how hard it is and how challenging, and just all the stuff going on. You're being bombarded, and it's getting obviously even harder because things are getting crazier. So yeah, I think, and people don't want to be told just being, because we want to do, don't we? We want to do and help and serve. But actually, yeah, that's really important message. Just being is everything.
And it's bringing in the feminine because
Yeah,
doing the yang, it's the masculine, the yin and the feminine it needs to be balanced. So the being is the receptivity of
yeah.
just allowing and just being having a presence without
Mm,
the yang masculine energy, and I mean that from a very impersonal perspective, not
yeah,
men,
yeah,
but the inner masculine
yeah.
allowing
It's the
us to.
divine, isn't it? The divine. So it's not to do with gender. It's, yeah, it's that energy signature. Yeah.
Yeah, the plus versus the minus versus the plus sign on the pole. Um,
Mm.
so, anywho, how well, thank you so much. This is
You're
great,
welcome.
and yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I'm going to